Welcome to the Audrey Dahlgren Show. Get ready. We're going on athletic adventures all over the great state of Michigan. And the show begins now. Here's your host, Audrey Dahlgren.
Hello and happy Monday, everybody. I hope the start to the brand new week is treating you all well. And Alex, it feels like a Monday. At least for me it does. I don't know how about you. I don't know how you feel, but it definitely feels like Monday to me.
Oh, yeah, I'm right there with you.
I don't know what it was. I'm like, man, maybe somebody, if I could just have a caffeine drip, like Ivy today, I might need it. There were so many festivities that took place over the weekend from Friday night. And then obviously on Saturday, one of those, of course, Michigan State football's dramatic overtime win against Nebraska. It was also Celebrate 2021 weekend on MSU's campus, where 8 former Spartans were inducted into the MSU Athletics Hall of Fame. We also had a wild week 5 on the gridiron in high school football. So there's a lot that was going on, which means why it would make for maybe a little tired Monday. That's for sure. As always, this is the hashtag Monday Motivation Show. And of course, I have a mantra to share. It's a quote by Gloria Vanderbilt, and it reads, "We were not put on this earth to see through one another. We were put on this earth to see one another through." I love it. I think it's so important to be kind to one another and also to show others you support them as well. And on Saturday, Michigan State's football team showed its support for one another. Its 23-20 come from behind win over Nebraska was hands down a collective team effort. They needed everyone to beat the Cornhuskers, and as a result, the Spartans are now 4-0 and have also moved up 3 spots in the AP top 25 rankings to number 17 this week. Alex, we knew that a win on Saturday would bump them up in the rankings, but are you satisfied with 17? Do you think 17 is justified?
Yeah, I think that's justified. No, I don't think they impressed enough to where you're gonna, catapult them up the rankings. I think, moving up, what did they go, 3 spots, I believe? Yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, Nebraska, obviously, I think they were a tough team. They proved that the week prior, taking Oklahoma pretty much to the wire. So, I mean, we knew we had a work cut out for us. I wasn't able to watch a ton of it. I had a wedding on Saturday that was really right through the heart of it. They did turn it on about 2 minutes going in. I saw the replay of the punt return. I didn't see the punt return live. I saw the replay of it, so it was 2020. I got to watch the remainder from there. So obviously, I got to see the good parts. It seemed like they might have struggled a little bit on offense. I haven't been able to watch it over again, but once I do, I'll be able to get a better feel of what went down.
Wow. Okay, so please describe this a little bit more to me then too, because obviously you're at a wedding.
Yep.
And you can't really see what's going on, but to see the replay of the punt return, what was the reaction like? Maybe from where you were.
I didn't realize that they were down, so I didn't even check my phone or anything going really throughout the game. So it was just kind of a surprise. Like, wow, we were right on the verge of losing this thing. I'd be glad that they obviously were able to punch it in, but I didn't really get to see much of the build-up, so I didn't have that type of reaction. But I was obviously excited to see it. I felt like even throughout this year, and Jaden Reed with his kick returns, it kind of just felt like he was on the verge of breaking one. Like, he had a few, especially on the kickoff, where he looked like he had a lane get tripped up just a little bit, and it was just like he was just right there from breaking one. So I was glad to see that he finally did, and obviously in a very, very big spot.
Oh, yeah. You have definitely, as you mentioned, we've seen it a couple times where he's on the verge of a major play like this about to happen. And so, there were so many moments, so many different moments to touch upon when it comes to the game. But I do want to start with that play because it completely changed the momentum. It shifted the momentum in the Spartans' favor. And Jaden Reed's 62-yard punt return for a touchdown, was that play. The Spartans were down by 7 with 3:47 left in the game. And once he caught the ball, he just booked it down the sideline for 6. And it was a tied. He tied it after that at 20. Tie game at 20 to send it into overtime. And one thing about Jay Reed, that's his nickname, is that he is a very confident guy. And after the game, he was asked when he realized, oh, this is going to work.
Probably 2 seconds after it was punted. I seen the wave of guys in white and red go that way, and I was like, yeah, that's 6. It was something we've been working on for about a few weeks now. Something we had to execute. The coaches called it, so we had a little decoy by Jalen Naylor, took the whole defense that way. So I give credit to Coach Els and the rest of the special teams unit for opening that play up for me and being able to get it in the end zone.
That was absolutely insane and just an amazing feeling. They actually got me, honestly, because I'm not with special teams during the week, so I had no idea. And I see Speedy waving his hand. I'm looking at the ball going the other way, and I see him catching. I see there's nobody over there, and man, that was a pretty amazing feeling. And credit, like he said, credit to the whole special teams unit, and credit to this guy for making a play and going and scoring.
Jaden Reed had mentioned that as soon as the punt was kicked, he knew that 2 seconds after it was kicked, he was going to return it for 6. And so how did you see it, and does that confidence come from what you were just speaking to about watching it in practice this last week?
Yeah, well, it was a good call by Ross, Coach Els, based upon our scheme, our punt return scheme, and what was called and how Nebraska reacted to our formation. It was obvious, like as when the ball was in the air, it was obvious that we had a shot. And with a guy like Jay Reed, I mean, he doesn't need a lot of room, but there was a lot of room out there, and he was out the gate, and so. But it's something that we practiced, and it's we were able to execute it. They kind of reacted the way we thought that they would, and so it was a good call, good execution, and then obviously you got to have good players, to execute the play and make a difference. And Jay Reed is a difference maker, is what he is. He's a good player.
It was exactly the jolt that Michigan State needed in order to come back and win the game, because it was pretty lifeless at that point from an offensive standpoint, because there was a series there where they had 4 straight 3-and-outs, 2 in the third quarter, 2 in the fourth quarter, and it was pretty dead inside Spartan Stadium.
That seemed like the perfect time to pull that trick out of the hat. I mean, that's just a testament to this coaching staff realizing, obviously, that the offensive momentum isn't really there right now, and we need a spark somehow. So let's pull this out. We've been working on it for weeks, and then obviously to execute it perfectly. That's what you love to see. The
part that was interesting, or not interesting, but the part that was great to hear too, is that from a confidence standpoint, Jaden Reed's like, 2 seconds after it was kicked, I knew that I was going to take it for 6. But if Jaden Reed, though, hadn't won over the hearts of Spartan fans prior to Saturday, he definitely did it on that punt return. And it's actually the first punt return for a touchdown for Michigan State's football team since Keyshawn Martin's 57-yarder against Northwestern in 2011.
Wow, it's been that long.
It's been 10 years.
I knew it's been a while, but I did not realize it's been that long. No, that's not exactly the stat you're hoping for, but I'm glad that they broke that streak when they did, because it obviously was well needed.
Yeah, nice little decade without a punt return for a touchdown.
Yeah.
As a result, too, Reed was named the Special Teams Player of the Week today by the Big Ten Conference. The last Michigan State player to receive this honor was Matt Coughlin in November of 2020. And, he very well, too, could have received this award this week, because he was the only one who was able to put points on the board for the Spartans for a while there. Coughlin finished Saturday's game with 3 field goals, capped off by the game-winning one in overtime. Did you see that? Were you able to see that?
The final field goal? Yeah, I was able to see that. Doing it on third down. No, I like that approach. I mean, it's an extra point, and then take away any possibility for error. I mean, if there is a bad snap or anything goes wrong, we can just punt it. Well, not actually punt it, but we can push it to the next play, and you have to obviously have faith that you're going to be able to bury that one. So, no, I thought that was a great decision to do that. I mean, because when, the tensions are high, anything can happen. So give yourself 2 chances at it. And Yeah, I like to see it. I like that play call.
Yeah, I mean, he did. He kicked that baby with authority. I mean, it went straight through the uprights. It was the hardest one, I feel like.
Yeah, he might have kicked it out of the stadium.
Yeah, he was roaring and ready to go. And so, of course, after the game as well, Coach Mel Tucker was asked to weigh in on Coughlin's performance on Saturday.
Cogs came through for us big, and he's a veteran player. He's kind of been there, done that. He's always very confident. He does a good job in practice. And, we knew that they had some issues fielding some balls in the past. So, we just had confidence to just, put a foot on it, get it out there, and let's go cover, And he, and so, he did that. And, that last, that field goal to win it, he was like, he looked at me, he's like, I got you. Hey, I'm good, I got you, Cole. You got nothing to worry about, because Ken was upset because he didn't score. He was upset because he almost scored. He was upset, so he comes off the field and he was like, I'm like, man, we got it. We're going to be okay. And he was like, man, as long as we win, as long as we win, as long as we win. And then Cogs is looking at me like, Coach, I got it. And so, like I said, it's a fun team to coach. Guys, they want to get it done in the worst way. Like, they care. Like, their care factor is high, like very high. And we push them so hard during the week, and they embrace it, and they understand that, like, this is a tough game, to play, and in this week in and week out, it's gonna be an all day sucker out there, when you go play, and so we've shown that we can win games, a certain way, with a kind of large margin. We've shown that we can go on the road, in the heat and find a way to get it done, and we've shown that we can, win a game like this. However you want to characterize it, you can have fun with that, whatever. But the voices inside of our building are going to be louder than the voices outside of the building for this football team, and so we're going to go back to work. We know what we need to do. We're going to figure it out, and we're going to figure it out very quickly, and get ready for the next one.
So we'll get to Kenneth Walker and Michigan State's offense in just a minute, but going off of Matt Coughlan and the special teams play in the game on Saturday, I found it to be incredibly fitting on a night where Michigan State honored not only Mike Sadler, but Nebraska's Sam Foltz. And really, that was almost the story of the game for a while there, because Nebraska's kicker as well, Connor Culp, he was the only, Nebraska wasn't scoring touchdowns either, so they were relying a lot on on him for field goals and getting points in that aspect. So I found it to be very interesting that, on a night where they remembered both of them, that special teams play was a huge part of the game. Yeah. So that was something that I did not ask Tucker about on Saturday, which maybe I will ask him tomorrow. Just because of, in that moment, it's really maybe not so much about that, but at the same time, it is interesting. I would kind of like to hear the perspective of maybe what he has to say about that, just because it's one of those things. I don't want to say it's eerie, but it definitely is interesting. But offensively, this was the worst Michigan State has played this year. Quarterback Peyton Thorne threw his first interception of the year on the opening drive of the game. He previously hadn't had an INT through the first 3 games, which was tied for first in the country. 9 touchdown passes going into the game, 0 interceptions. He was 14-23 for 183 yards and 1 touchdown. And this is coming off after back-to-back 4-touchdown games. So Nebraska's defense did a pretty good job of, containing him. Additionally, on the ground, Michigan State couldn't get anything going. The Spartans only rushed for a total of 71 yards, 61 of those coming from Kenneth Walker, but no touchdowns from a back and no rushing touchdown from anyone. And it's not like Nebraska's run defense is something to rave home about, because they came into the game allowing opponents to put up 156 yards per game. And Michigan State was only able to muster up 71. The other biggie of the game was the 5 3-and-outs on 5 possessions. We touched upon the 4 of them that came in between the third and fourth quarters, but it was back to back to back to back. And that's when people started actually leaving. Some people left the game.
Wow.
A lot of people, there were some people who were not actually in the stands to see Jaden Reed's, 62-yard punt return for a touchdown, and then obviously Chester Kimbrough's interception that flipped it in for Michigan State to win it.
Yeah.
So
I don't understand. I'll never understand the leaving early thing. I get, you want to beat the traffic or whatever, but especially if it's still in reach, because it's just aside from the fact that the game was still in reach, like in my opinion, you dedicated that day and that afternoon to go see
right.
this game. And all the build up before it, I mean, it's a 5-6 hour. Like, why can't you just stay another hour to finish it out when you've already committed your afternoon to that? So I personally don't understand. I'm in the boat where I'll stick around for I'm not getting out of the stadium early, even if they're getting blown out, because I've committed myself to this game. So, but anyway, but it's at the same time, it's kind of nice to see Michigan State be able to get it done, find a way to win when things weren't going well. Because, up until this point, especially Kenneth Walker not running the way that he was, up until this point, obviously he's had his way with every team that he's ran against. It's been pretty much smooth sailing ever since they get the lead to the end of the game. So they really haven't been faced with that type of adversity, especially late into the game, to see that they can, find a way to execute and just find a way to win in a day that you just don't have your stuff going and things aren't clicking on both sides of the not both sides of the ball, but both parts of the offense, both passing and running, and still find a way to win against make no mistake about it, it's a tough Nebraska team. Like I said earlier, they took Oklahoma down to the wire. They had them on the ropes, and they just simply have had Michigan State's number in the past. Even in the year that they went to the college football playoff, that was their only loss, was to Nebraska. So for whatever reason, we struggle against them. You didn't have anything really going, and you still find a way to win. So that's really encouraging. And hopefully we're looking back at this as the worst offensive performance of the season. But if not, at least you can still find a way to get it done, even when you don't have it clicking. Yeah,
they learned a lot, I would say, especially the offense learned a lot probably about themselves.
Yeah, I think
this
game. This game was, I don't want to say it was a must happen, but to have something like this is very important, because there's going to be times in the season or stretches in the season where, you go 3-and-out a few times in a row and you get behind, and knowing that you've already done it and you know that you can, get back and win a game when you don't have your stuff going, is huge for the confidence factor. And I think it'll bode well for them in the future.
Xavier Henderson, too, said after the game that they knew that if they could win this game, it would put them in a very good position going forward for the rest of the year. It was one of those games. It was a must-win, had to win this game. And, I don't think anybody will be leaving now going forward. I think if anything, too, if you've seen anything over the first 4 games, this team does have an incredible amount of fight in them, the will to, not back down, and the will to push forward and, be #relentless in its pursuit for victory. And so that's something that, I don't think people will be leaving early just in case going forward, because, you saw what happened, transpired on Saturday. And, looking at the defense a little bit more, Michigan State quarterback Chester Kimbrough, as we mentioned, intercepted Adrian Martinez's pass on Nebraska's first possession in overtime. And he, too, returned it 62 yards, but ended up getting tackled, which if he would have won the game in that fashion, Michigan State, the stadium had already erupted on Jaden Reed's 62-yard return. But, if he would have, I think they would have lost their minds.
Oh,
they would have,
for sure.
But he was taken down, and then gathering my thoughts here. Well, I was thinking about something. But yeah, it was a play that, Xavier Henderson was asked about after the game as well. And so this was like his perspective, vantage point from watching and looking at Kimbrough's interception.
We were playing kind of like quarters, so really kind of manned out. And I watched them. I watched the ball throw, and I peeked over, and it looked like that Malcolm Butler kind of interception, really, in the championship where versus the Seahawks. And then he took it and started running, and I was like, it's overtime. He can score and win. So I take off running, trying to get the quarterback. But we got to do a better job with our interception mechanics. It's something we talk about. Somebody should have peeled around for him. But I watched him take it, and I wasn't surprised at all to see him do it. I see him do it in practice.
Xavier Henderson, too, he led Michigan State with 17 total tackles. His performance sort of got lost, I think, in all of the hype surrounding special teams play. And overall, here's what Mel Tucker took away from Michigan State's win over Nebraska.
There was a lot of lessons to be learned because we talked to our team daily, constantly, all throughout practice, all throughout meetings about just keep chopping wood, play the next play, play the next play, play the next play. The most important thing is what you do next, and just keep going, keep going, keep going. That's how we train. That's our mindset. You know, it's relentless. Relentless has two components. It's high velocity and it's nonstop. And we're just not going to stop. And we're going to find a way to get it done. And our guys, our coaches, our players, our entire organization believes that and believes in finding a way and trusting our process. And so, you know, it was in turnover margin, I mean, you know, I think we were +1. You know, the last takeaway we got was huge in the game, huge. And that's a big part of it. Special teams, field position. You know, Bryce did a really nice job punting the football. You know, so even when we were stalling out, you know, we were able to, you know, line up, punt, get it out of there, and make them go the long, hard way. And you know, giving our defense a chance to get them stopped and things like that. And so our guys were very, very poised in the game. And we talk about, you know, never flinching. You know, just don't flinch no matter what. Just stand in there and just take it and just keep going. And we talk about that pendulum swinging back and forth, that pendulum of momentum in games. And this game was no different. I mean, there's always momentum swings, you know, and how do you, if you lose momentum, how do you get it back? You get it back through execution and playing the next play. And you can get it back just like that. And that's what we were able to do there, you know, there at the end. And so we haven't played our best football yet this season, but we have remained in the left-hand column. And so, you know, again, it's the same thing. It's a 24-hour rule, and then we get back to work. We figure out, you know, what we need to do to correct some things, and then when we move on to the next one. You give Nebraska a lot of credit. I mean, Scott has been there for a few years, and he's building the program, and they've gotten better and better each year. And like we saw last week in Norman, you know, on the road, they took Oklahoma, you know, on the road, and they had them, you know, and they had a chance to win the game, you know. And so, you know, what does that mean? It just means that, you know, every time you step on the field, man, it's going to be a physical four-quarter football game. You know, we told the players it was going to be a double mouthpiece game, and that's what it was. I mean, it was physical from the start all the way to the finish, and you know, we found a way to get it done. So, I'm proud of our football team, and I'm happy that we won the game. And I told the players in the locker room, I said it's it's not just football, but it's in life. It's a life lesson. You just don't quit, period. No matter what, you just keep going. And I also told them that this is bigger than just the players and the coaches and staff in the locker room. We're playing. This is big for Michigan State, the university, our university community, all of our fans and alumni across the country and across the world, and our former players. Everyone is invested, and we can feel the support from everyone. And so, these types of wins, these are gut checks, can be transformational moments. So we'll just see what's next for us. But I know one thing: this team is very grounded, and so we'll go back to work and get ready for the next one.
One thing too, Alex, you probably missed this as well if you were at the wedding, but Connor Hayward had an electric 38-yard run in the second quarter. That, he's been, a difference maker in certain aspects and points of the game, especially when it comes to blocking through the first 3 games. But he had this run where he trucked through not just one Nebraska defender, but 2. I don't know if you
I don't know if you saw it live. I didn't see it live, but I did see the clip afterwards on Twitter and stuff. And what a heck of a run. And Connor Hayward, that's a guy, there's a lot of obviously coaching impacts that have been made since they've gotten here, but their ability to figure out how to use him the way that they do, I don't think you could use that guy any better than they have this season. And he was, a lot of Michigan State fans, he was kind of a cast off. They were sick of him as being the lead running back, and now they found a way to utilize him in the passing game and have him being a lead blocker, and he is impacting the game positively each and every time that he's been out there. And that to me has been one of definitely the bright spots in this coaching staff, but just finding a way to use him the way that they have, and he has been impressive. Yeah,
he really has. And it just goes to what Tucker was mentioning too about, this team never quits. This team isn't giving up. And Connor Hayward, I think, is a good example of that too, because he has been moved, kind of taken out of a role that he's been used to for years at Michigan State. And, he's just finding a way to adjust and adapt to, what the staff is asking of him.
There make no mistake about it. He got pushed out of that running back, room, not the room itself, but that being involved in that running back committee. So it would have been very easy for a guy that's been such a prominent player to kind of take a step back and sulk a little bit. But no, he found a way to get himself on the field and found a way to impact the game in different ways. And he's been a huge bright spot in this season.
Yeah. Next up is Western Kentucky at home, another night game. And I don't know if this has a lot to do with it, but Michigan State really has not played a night game since 2019. So sometimes you wonder too, the wait factor of all day. Nobody likes waiting all day for, I don't think, a game to get underway. From a player standpoint, you're just they're stuck in the hotel, then they're going through eating lunch, and then they have to do maybe different walkthroughs. But they have another night game now, so maybe they'll be a little bit more prepared from that standpoint when it comes to facing Western Kentucky at 7:30 this Saturday at Spartan Stadium. It is homecoming as well, so it'll be very hectic and lots going on campus. And we're going to take one quick break, but when we come back, we're going to get into some other news regarding Michigan State's football team that had surfaced kind of late last night, involving 2 defensive players putting their names in the transfer portal. And not that it's, all too surprising, but there is some element, I guess, of surprise to it. And Colton Pouncy from The Athletic is going to join us to discuss this. Stay with us.
Good news, Billie Eilish fans. Amazon is coming out with the Billie Eilish limited edition Echo Studio, available for pre-order, and features the melancholy voice singer pasted on the side of Amazon's highest-end Echo speaker, the Studio. It's Amazon's first foray into celebrity skins on its speakers. It comes with a $30 price bump over the non-Billie version, which goes for $200. You do get 6 months of Amazon Music bundled with it. Amazon set to hold an event this week to officially release some new and upgraded devices. Chris Pratt will star as the voice of Mario in an upcoming Super Mario Brothers movie. The actor will voice the tubby Italian plumber who changed the world of video games with the release of Super Mario Bros. 36 years ago. Film will also feature Queen's Gambit star Anna Taylor-Joy as Peach, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia's Charlie Day as Mario's brother Luigi, and Jack Black as the villain Bowser. Movie will hit theaters in December of next year. Tech Report, Larry Olson, NBC News Radio.
NBC News Radio, I'm Michael Kastner. New York is in a state of emergency because of today's COVID vaccine mandate. All hospital and nursing home workers risk losing their jobs if they don't have at least one shot. Any staffing shortages could be filled with the National Guard and out-of-state medical workers. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says President Biden's agenda of building back better has the support of most Democrats in Congress.
Overwhelmingly, the entirety of our caucus, except for a few whose judgment I respect, support the vision of Joe Biden, and we will make progress on it this week.
Speaking on ABC's This Week, the California Democrat said lawmakers expect to make progress on the infrastructure bill this week with the hope of passing it. Pelosi said she would never bring a bill to the floor that doesn't have the votes to pass. The FBI hopes some of Brian Laundrie's personal items could help agents find him as he remains a person of interest after his fiance's remains were found in Wyoming. Agents were at his Florida home Sunday to pick up items for a DNA test. Laundrie has been missing for over a week, and investigators have been searching the swampy Carlton Reserve for any trace of him. Meanwhile, a funeral was held Sunday in New York for 22-year-old Gabby Petito, but her body remains in FBI custody. 5 people are still in the hospital following Saturday's train derailment in a remote part of Montana. But Governor Greg Gianforte noted all passengers have been accounted for.
With the exception of the 5 passengers who remain hospitalized in stable condition, all passengers have been treated and released from medical centers.
3 people were killed when several cars of the Amtrak train went off the tracks near Joplin, Montana. The National Transportation Safety Board will be investigating the derailment. Football players at the University of Utah are mourning one of their own. Aaron Lowe was shot and killed at a house party in Salt Lake City. The team's head coach said he will be deeply missed. A woman was also shot at the party and is in critical condition. Michael Kastner, NBC News Radio.
5 teams are still unbeaten in the National Football League. Following Sunday's Week 3 action, Cardinals and Rams sit atop the NFC West at 3-0 following victories. Arizona used a huge second half to rally past the Jaguars 31-19 in Jacksonville. The Rams knocked off the Buccaneers 34-24, handing the defending champs their first loss since Week 12 of last season. In the AFC West, the Broncos and Raiders with the surprising early division lead at 3-0. The Chargers sit third at 2-1 after beating the Chiefs in Kansas City 30-24. In one of the early shockers so far, the Chiefs are last in the AFC West at 1-2. Baltimore Ravens kicker Justin Tucker kicked a record 66-yard field goal. The Ravens beat the Lions 19-17 in Detroit. It set a new record for the longest field goal, replacing Matt Prater's 64-yarder. When golf note at the Ryder Cup, the United States defeated Europe for its 27th Ryder Cup title. That's sports. I'm Seth Everett.
Welcome back to the Audrey Dahlgren Show.
You want to win, don't you? Well, I think I'd really rather try to beat him honestly.
The Spotlight Radio Network.
All right. We're kind of curious if we're going to see this next wave of transfers roll through Michigan State's football team. Last year, we've mentioned it so many times, about 17 scholarship players on the roster entered the portal. Coach Mel Tucker revamped the roster. 41 new faces when preseason practice began. And last night, there were some veteran players who decided to enter the transfer portal as well. And so this is something that I wanted to bring Colton Pouncy on from The Athletic to discuss and kind of delve into. And so Colton is with us now. How are you doing today?
Pretty good, Audrey. How are you?
Oh, you know, I was a little tired this morning. A lot of festivities that took place over the weekend.
Absolutely.
As you know, those late night games, nobody understands just how much goes into those late night games from a work standpoint. And so how did you, what time did you get done on a Saturday night? Saturday morning, I should say.
Yeah. Oh, man. You know, I had a morning deadline, so I could kind of take my time with it. And whenever someone gives me a morning deadline, I'm kind of a perfectionist, so I will stay up and try to tweak it until it's exactly how I like it. So I was kind of up until like 6 a.m. Took a 2-hour nap, woke back up, tweeted it out when my editor finally finished, and then was napping throughout the day Sunday. So I think my sleep schedule is back in order now. But yeah, those night games can be rough, but also fun just because of the atmosphere and everything like that.
Oh, absolutely. We touched upon that all in the first half hour of the show. And, maybe we can get into that a little bit later. But I do want to discuss kind of what happened last night in a sense of both Chase Kline and Kalon Gervin entering the transfer portal. When you saw this, is it a surprising thing to you when you saw this happen, or what should people expect of this? Because I had some people text me and they were like, do we need to be concerned that these players have entered the transfer portal?
Yeah, I mean, with these two, obviously last year when guys were entering the portal left and right, it was, you kind of had to pick and choose, okay, who's going to be a factor, who isn't. A lot of those guys that left just simply weren't going to play. They probably had conversations with the coaching staff at the end of the season and, kind of let them know where they stood. So they made the best decision for them to enter the portal. And with these two guys specifically, these were guys that were in the playing rotation. We know how much Michigan State rotates defensively. It's been one of their big emphasis this year. And so when you have a guy like Kalon Gervin, who started a bunch of games last year, entered this season as a starter, I can see how on the surface it would, be a bit of a loss. But, cornerback has been one of those weaker areas defensively. I just never really thought that Gervin was particularly effective. He wasn't terrible, but I think there are some other players that give you a little bit more. Chester Kimbrough, he had the big interception in that overtime session, basically iced the game for Michigan State. Ronald Williams, the Alabama transfer, has been really good this year, in my opinion. True freshman Chuck Brantley has also played well, and I think he's going to be a dude here. When he finally gets his feet wet and everything, I think he's going to be a really good player for Michigan State down the line. So those are three players ahead of Kalon Gervin at this point, through 4 weeks. And I think he probably just saw, where he stood in that pecking order and said, you know what, I think I should probably look around. I don't know if the timing necessarily had to do with, eligibility or anything like that, because he already redshirted. So it's not one of those situations where, okay, I played 4 games, let me not play anymore so I can preserve that red shirt. I think he's already past that point. I could be wrong, but I don't think that was a factor. I just think he kind of, realized where he stood, wanted to get a head start on that process, put his name there. Some teams could find him next couple months. And kind of the same thing with Chase Kline. I would say he's probably a bigger loss than Gervin just because he was like the first linebacker off the bench. I know that he was passed up by Cal Haladay and Quavaris Crouch, but, he's still been a rotational piece over the years, can give you some juice off the bench. And now you lose a player like that, so it does hurt your depth at linebacker, and that wasn't exactly a strong point coming into the season. So I think to lose a player like that who can help you, who can give your starters a breather every now and then, that probably hurts more immediately than losing like your fourth corner in Kalon Gervin. But I can see why when you see these two names specifically in the portal, it would have some people kind of questioning things.
Yeah, how much too do you think that Tucker is still trying to reshape the roster?
Yeah, I think it's a little tougher to do just in season. To me, it just felt like these were two players who kind of, realized where they stood in the team, both backups on defense. And, Mel Tucker likes to say, we want these guys to prepare like they're starters. We want them to enter the game like they're starters. And the whole reason he doesn't put out a depth chart is because, he wants to keep everyone engaged during the season and, playing like they're a starter, even if they're coming off the bench. So I think the way that Michigan State rotates, the way that they do, I think these players could have bought into that, I am a starter even though I'm coming off the bench. You can do that for a little bit, but eventually a pecking order is going to kind of settle in and it's going to be clear. So I think these guys, redshirt juniors, both of them, already 4th year on campus, probably I think one more year after this. I think they both kind of realized, let me just enter the portal now and kind of see where I stand and see which teams are interested in me at this point. I guess they might have an extra year with the COVID year and everything, so maybe 2 years. Mm-hmm. I got to figure that out. But yeah, I think that's kind of where they stood with this.
I know that was another thing, too, thinking about it last night. It's like, okay, how does this all play out with the COVID year as well as, when you decide to transfer? Because obviously last year everybody could just play right away. And so there's a lot to kind of, figure out from that standpoint, which is interesting, too. I do want to go back to, the atmosphere. What did you think of the atmosphere on Saturday night at Spartan Stadium?
Oh, I thought it was great. That's something Mel Tucker was talking about. Even like immediately after the Miami game, you have this big win on the road. He's talking about Nebraska fans, the woodshed, all that stuff. So I think that was really something that they were trying to hype up throughout the week as early as, last Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
So you could tell they wanted to pack the woodshed, as they say. Still not fully sold on that nickname. I know the players have called it that for, 20 years now or something like that, but I had never heard it until like 2 weeks ago for the first time. So
yeah.
It helps when you win, though. I'll say that. Like when you win consistently, if you're gonna call it the woodshed and hype it up and brand it as that, you have to win. So if Michigan State would have lost that game against Nebraska, I think people would have been done with the whole woodshed thing. But no, it was a great atmosphere. Really fascinating game. I did not think Michigan State was going to pull that out, but they did, and that's really all that matters. They're 4-0 now. I think the fans are still excited. There's a lot of buzz around this town. I was even driving around campus kind of before the game, and I could tell like the bars are packed. People walking the streets wearing their, green and white for the striped game. It was a really cool atmosphere just from start to finish Saturday. So that was cool to see.
Yeah, people really did buy into it. I mean, and that's the most buzz I think that has been around a game. I mean, last year was COVID, so it's hard to it's hard to compare, obviously, because no fans were really allowed, only close family members of staff and players. But yeah, right. I mean, it was definitely an atmosphere that was for a night game. Over 70,000 people that were there. And then, another thing too, we mentioned at the top of the show, I went into a lot of different things in regards of, offensively, probably one of the worst performances that we've seen from Michigan State this season. And what do you think Nebraska just really, really did? Because it's not like their run defense was something to really rave home about going into the game, but they did a great job of controlling Michigan State on the ground, only allowing 71 rush yards.
Yeah, it really seemed to me like their game plan was we're going to let Peyton Thorne beat us, not Kenneth Walker. So every time Walker, he's gotten a lot of his yards on the edges, outside the tackles, and it seems like they were, cognizant of that. So every time he tried to bounce it out, they were right there waiting for him. So that's something Michigan State's probably going to have to work on going forward. Getting those runs up the middle. I know the offensive line does look better, but I still think they have a lot to work on still, especially with those runs up the middle when Walker can't bounce it out. So Nebraska was there on the edges for him waiting. And, again, I think he only had like 39 yards after, regulation, which is kind of crazy. He had that big 23-yard run in overtime. But, yeah, not a great game for him. And I also think, going back to what I said about, Peyton Thorne, Nebraska's secondary is really good. I think they were, top 30 defense against the pass entering this game, and it kind of showed. Thorne looked a little bit rattled. Some people were asking me if he was banged up, or I know he took a big hit, early in that game. I'm not really sure if that affected him or if it was just, the fact that Nebraska's secondary kind of swarms to the ball and things like that. That was maybe, messing up his internal clock and things like that. I'm not really sure exactly what it was, but he was definitely rattled out there, and that was probably the first time I've seen him like that. So it was a little bit of a shock. He had his first interception of the season too. So I just think Nebraska came to play. They held Oklahoma's offense to 23 points the week before. And anytime you can do that, I mean, I think you have a pretty good defense on your hands. And it kind of showed Saturday night. So, yeah, Michigan State's lucky to escape that game with a win, considering they didn't have their best stuff. But I also think it was a testament to, how the defense played, got some big contributions from special teams. Mel Tucker talks about every phase, working together, and we didn't have one in the offense last night or a couple nights ago. You saw the defense and special teams, the other two phases kind of picking up for the offense. So I think that was, even though, it wasn't the greatest win, it wasn't a perfect game, as Mel Tucker said, seeing that you can get those contributions, I thought was pretty huge for MSU.
I thought the other important thing that he mentioned in the press conference after the game was about how, we talk to the players about never flinching, just don't flinch. And you saw that on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. Xavier Henderson, he had the quote. He was he's so calm and cool and collected up there. He had the quote. He's like, I never really thought that we didn't have a chance to win, which is pretty crazy considering, Nebraska went up 20-13 in the fourth quarter, and Michigan State had 1 yard of offense in that entire quarter. So, him saying that, I don't know if that's just him, I believe in my guys, or if it's just, really that deep water mentality where, we know that something's going to go our way. It's just a matter of time. So the defense Henderson and those guys on defense really hung in there. They were playing a lot of snaps. I thought they had to be gassed just watching them, but they held firm. They're waiting for a play to be made. They had the punt return with Jaden Reed, which went like 62 yards for a touchdown, and I think that's when they kind of realized, all right, yeah, we're going to win this game. Let's get to overtime. They got a big sack on Adrian Martinez with like under a minute left in regulation. Scott Frost said after the game that like if it weren't for that sack, we were trying to score. Like we were going to go down the field, try to get a field goal and keep it out of overtime. But the sack kind of changed his line of thinking, and it's like, well, let's just play it safe. We'll play for overtime and see what happens. Obviously, it didn't go well.
Yeah.
Martinez threw the pick to Kimbrough. Kenneth Walker finally has that big burst, for 23 yards, and Matt Coghlin hits the game winner to win it. So, again, it goes back to that mentality that comes from the top with Mel Tucker, neutral thinking, next play, deep water mentality, all that stuff. You kind of see it, rubbing off on his players and on his team. So, yeah, I mean, that's probably like the biggest thing for me watching Michigan State is they didn't have that last year. They weren't that confident. That kind of mindset was not instilled in them yet, and you can see it now.
Right. It's why people may have left the game early on Saturday because they kind of just already counted them out in a sense.
Right.
Not thinking that they were going to come back and win that game. One more player that I want to ask you about too, and I don't think that we've received an update yet on, is Drew Beasley. Drew Beasley went out in the game on Saturday. He came back in a wheelchair with a boot on. If he's not able to come back in for, I don't know if it's how long-term the injury, I don't know what it's going to be, but how much, does an impact that make on the team if he's not able to play?
Yeah, he's a big loss, both kind of on and off the field. Mel Tucker does his weekly captains, so I don't think he names, a season-long one, but if he were to do it that way, have to imagine Beasley would be one of those guys. And then on the field, he led this team in sacks last year, one of the best run defenders on the outside at defensive end. So he can help you in a lot of ways, and he's also just, a smart veteran player out there. So losing a guy like him certainly hurts, and we did see him in that boot after the game. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they make up for it. Jeff Piotrowski's a guy who's gotten into the rotation a little bit, so I'd imagine he probably gets to start if Beasley can't go for however long he's out, alongside Jacob Panasiuk, who had one of his best games of his career, in my opinion, against Nebraska. So if he can keep that up, and Piotrowski can contribute a little bit, Mike Fletcher has been in the rotation, some other guys, maybe Tank Brown gets back in the mix. I think they'll be okay, but again, losing a veteran like that and Drew Beasley, that always it's going to hurt a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up Piotrowski because he has been impressive. He's been real impressive, at least in this last game, and then against Youngstown State as well, and even Miami a little bit. So yeah, thanks for bringing him up because he's important.
He is. He's an undersized guy, but they like him a lot, and he's kind of, as Mel Tucker says, he's relentless out there. So I think they like having him in the rotation for sure.
All right. Well, thanks, Colton, for coming on for a bit to get into all of this, and I'll see you tomorrow at Mel Tucker's weekly press conference.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
A lot of good stuff there from Colton, as always. If you are not subscribed to The Athletic, I don't know if I should do promotions, but I always like to promote The Athletic just because they're just solid guys. So, if you're not subscribed to The Athletic, you should check out Colton Pouncy and his work covering Michigan State's football team. And hey, that does it for us on this Monday. Enjoy the rest of your day and stay safe out there, as always.